Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism. It's 3 o'clock on this Wednesday, April 13th in room 224. Before we get into the agenda, I have to mention a few housekeeping reminders that this meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You'll find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. In the unlikely event that we hit any kind of technical difficulties and this hearing takes a nosedive, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business. Public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. And for those of you who may be participating remotely, all testifier audio will be muted and video disabled until shortly before it is your turn to testify. We have two measures on today's agenda, GM 824 and 825. Both of these are submitted for consideration to the Stadium Authority. The nominee is Wilfred Okabe. And I will let you know who the supporters are. Testifying in support, written testimony, we have Mike McCartney, Harris Nakamoto, Raymond Ono, Les Murashige, Vanessa Eaglin, Floyd Eaglin, Don Raymond, Carrie Sato, Gabriela Marie Cabanas, Wilfred Kaola, Susan Kim, John Taketa, Ethan Tomikio, Tomoko Matsumoto, Ajon Angelo, Wallace Ishibashi, Renette Pacheco, Dennis Kauka, Merrick Nishimoto, Joan Lewis, Barrett Otani, Dwight Takeno, Clyde Hayashi, Wilbert Hollick, and Joe Cho. IT, is there anyone online that might be waiting to testify? Okay, there was no one that indicated online testimony, just wanted to make sure. Mr. Okabe, if we could have you come forward.
Thank you.
Sure, aloha, welcome, and thank you for making the effort to be with us in person. If you could introduce yourself to the committee members and tell us what you would like to do as a member of the Stadium Authority Board.
My name is Will Okabe, and first of all, I'd like to say aloha to Senator Wakai and also Senator Misa Lucha. Did I say right? Misa Lucha and Senator Rivera. The other two senators are not going to be here, I guess, for the committee.
They might be joining us later.
Oh, okay. First of all, I'd like to say that I am honored to be nominated by Governor Ige to the Stadium Authority Board. I am from the neighbor islands, and I want to also thank the people who sent in testimony on my behalf, and I'm heartfelt thankful to them for sending in testimony. This project will be an economic booster for the state of Hawaii. It will generate a lot of revenue. It is an opportunity for the community to really strive. It will be an enormous project, and I think that it will be something that we will be very, very happy for the state of Hawaii to have a venue to address not only sports events, but events of entertainment. I think that one of the plans was to have hotels, business venues, and I think the rail was supposed to go into that particular area. So it will generate a lot of revenue for the state in that particular area. But I also like to say that, I was really pleasantly surprised when I listened to this committee and the statement on Monday. And this is referring to what you said, Senator Wakai. The fun part of being a lawmaker is to accept volunteerism from our community, from illustrious backgrounds, to help government in whatever capacity that you are nominated for. That sentiment was not shared with me last week in our Zoom meeting. You explained to me that I did not have the qualifications in regards to certain areas like land management finance and budget, and probably real estate and things of construction. You gave me two options that day to go before the governor's office and withdraw my name from nomination, and said that to save me the embarrassment of not being confirmed by the Senate. And you asked me, what is my decision? And I said, I choose to go through the process, through the committee, and to be able to go before the Senate and for the Senate to vote. That was my request. So I understand that this is on YouTube. Senators, all the senators, the 25 senators will be viewing this particular YouTube, whether they have my resume or letters of testimony or recommendations on my behalf. I'd like to take a few moments to give you my background as far as diversity. You know, I was born here on Oahu, and I moved to the Big Island when I was 25. When I lived here in Oahu, my grandfather was a farmer, along with my father and many of his brothers. My grandfather first started farming in Waialaikahala. In that area in Waialaikahala, there were many farmers in that area. But what happened was the taxes was a very big issue, and a lot of the farmers or people of residents back then, and that was probably in the 40s or the 50s, could not afford the tax. So they started to sell their properties. My grandfather and my father and his brothers went to Hawai'i. I lived where Kaiser High School is now. In that particular valley in Hawai'i were all farmers, vegetable farmers, pig farmers, cattle farmers, and a lot of people that were able to be there was basically trying to make a living. But it was a lease land. So therefore, when Kaiser started developing that particular property, farmers had to either go to Waianae or they had to go to Waimanalo. My parents and my grandfather moved to Waianae. I would have gone to probably New Valley Intermediate, then gone on to Kalani High School. When I went to Waianae High School, definitely it was a different environment, coming from a city school, going into a rural school. Diversity. I was able to play football for Larry Ginoza back then, and I realized that it was definitely a challenge to be able to relate to a different culture, to be able to blend in and communicate with different friends in that environment. When I graduated from Waianae High School, I later went on to play college football at Willamette University in Salem, Oregon. I'm not a very big guy, but I was able to play small college football at that time, private schools in the Northwest was not on a full scholarship. It was a situation that we had financial aid grant. So many of the athletes that went to Willamette or many of the private schools on the West Coast were able to have work study, free room and board. But for me and many of the players that came from Hawaii, we started working at the mental hospital. We stayed at the nurses' dorm and worked at the mental hospital at Oregon, and to be able to help us with our tuition. So it was a free room and board. They gave us work study, and that was definitely helpful for us. And my parents were farmers, and I understand that it was a challenge. I have 3 other sisters that graduated from the University of Hawaii, younger sisters. One of them is a medical technologist. The other is a teacher. And my other sister is a dental hygienist. All of us graduated from college. But at that time, when we went to college, that was a value that our parents set before us. Being farmers, we weren't rich, but we weren't poor, but we understood hard work. So after I graduated from college, I came back to Hawaii And that was in 1974. The teachers had just gone through a strike, a reorganization of the teachers' union. There were no jobs in 1974. I started working at Long's drugstore for several years. I started driving a truck at the warehouse. If you remember, or you might not remember, we used to have a farmer's market down by Ward Avenue. And that area, we had a Long's warehouse. I started working as a truck driver at that time, and later on transferred to Ala Moana Long's and became a manager trainee. But then there was I was still looking for a teaching job. So then I moved to the Big Island in 1978. In 1978, I started working at the Job Corps program, which is a federally funded program for kids that are from age 16 to 24 years old, getting their GED and trying to get them OJT and work-related experience. Then at that time in 1978, I started coaching football at Hilo High School and later on at Waikia High School. And I became the head football coach in 1984 at Pahoa High School. And that's when I started my career as a teacher in the Department of Education. From that time, I had the opportunity to be able to be a local school leader for the Hawaii State Teachers Association. That gave me an opportunity to move up in at the state level. I served 9 years as a state treasurer on the Hawaii State Teachers Association, 6 years as a vice president, and later 6 years as a state president of the Hawaii State Teachers Association, representing 13,500 teachers. But along that time, before I became the president, I had many other jobs. Number one, when Governor Cayetano was the governor, I started working as a A+ coordinator after school program, which was a very vital program for people who had the opportunity for students to have after school learning. Then I also had the opportunity to have a farm. Because of my background as a farmer, my parents, I started to farm in Pahoa, and I had a 10-acre anthurium farm. As all of you know, and the listeners and the senators, teachers don't make a lot of money. I started working in the anthurium farm, and later on, I decided that I had to sell it because what was happening as a part-time farmer, the anthurium blight at that time was going around from Kauai, hitting every island and devastating a lot of the anthurium farms. I sold 10 acres of my property to Senator Inouye's husband, Fern Inouye. After that, I left the school. I went to teach at Hilo High School because I was in Pahoa, and started my career at Hilo High School. After that, I realized that community service was very important. I served on many, many boards and commissions. Started off with the East Hawaii Coalition for the Homeless. I was a chair of the Police Commission, chair of the Fire Commission. Governor Cayetano had appointed me to the Aquatic and Wildlife Commission back then. I served on a board that was that addressed the terminally ill kids, the Dream Come True program on the Big Island, similar to Make-A-Wish Foundation, but only for terminally ill kids on the Big Island. And recently, I served on the board of the Big Island Sports Hall of Fame Committee. So along the way, as a state leader, I served on many commissions. I served on the national level at the NEA. I was the vice chair and the regional director for presidents on the Pacific region. I served as a chair of the national committee on a committee. So therefore, I have a lot of experience in regards to that. So after that, serving as a president of the Hawaii State Teachers Association, I became the governor's liaison in East Hawaii. After that, I was appointed by Mayor Kim to be the managing director of Hawaii County. I served 3 years in that, and now I am retired senior, having a lot of time to give back to the community. And that is one of the reasons why I want to serve, because I have the time to give back to the community. So I think that that gives you a brief history, not that brief, but a history of where I'm coming from. Senator?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Okabe. Members, any questions? I have a few questions. Thank you for that background, Mr. Okabe. And it's very obvious that you're a wonderful community servant and have an illustrious background in education. But I'm not sure that that background in education is well suited for the task at hand, which is about development and monetization of state lands and planning a really dynamic district for the people of this state.
Mhm.
As you talked about the chronology of events that you've gone through in life, were there opportunities where you've had any experience with land management, construction, financing of projects that could be useful in a potential capacity on the Stadium Authority Board?
Yes, I thought that I was able to try to convey that to you in our Zoom meeting last week. Number one, as a managing director who is in charge of 21 departments, including boards and commissions, my sole responsibility is to oversee the finances of $600 million on the county level. I was in charge of every single department. Every department has a budget. I have to review that budget with the controller to be able to proceed to send it to the mayor. In regards to land management, the county, every county in the state of Hawaii has fiscal responsibilities and responsibilities in regards to land development and land management. So therefore, I have experience in that particular area. But we talked about this, and you mention, and also the vice chair mentioned that this past Monday, that you're looking for people with diversity who have a lifelong experience in many things. I want to say that I want to be an asset to the Stadium Authority because I feel that I have the experience, a broad range, being in business, being a farmer, having the opportunity to serve as a state president, negotiations, working with unions, working with leaders within the community to be able to bring some value of myself to be able to be put on the Stadium Authority. There is no, that's why I said earlier that I'm very honored to be nominated by the governor because I am from the neighbor island. And I think that the representation from the neighbor island should be on the Stadium Authority as well. It is not, it is a state-funded facility. And I believe that I can bring, I will listen, but I'm not going to sit here and say to any of you senators or the senators that are listening or the community people that are listening to this discussion, I don't know everything. I don't, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to learn. And I know your response to me last week was that you don't have time for me to learn, that you want to move ahead and go forward. Those are your comments. And you wanted like-minded people to be able to have that same mode to be able to move this project through. But I said that I believe in diversity. We need to have people to have a diverse experiences to be able to move this project through. And then when you have only like-minded people without having that diversity, it does not have the transparency needed. to be able to move something like this. It is an enormous project. It is an opportunity for the state of Hawaii to gain revenue, to be a project that everyone can be proud of. Like whether you're talking about the stadium in Las Vegas or the stadium in LA, it is an enormous project. It has many opportunities for jobs, local jobs, jobs that will give local people an opportunity to work. $40 million for the swap meet for those people, giving an opportunity to have, whether it's 76 acres or 90 acres around that area, to have hotels. It will generate a lot of income to the state of Hawaii. And I feel that I have that experience to do that. And I respect your feeling that I don't. But I would like the senators to really look into my past, and so I shared this with you, and my resume, and to read the recommendations by the testimonies given to you today, to be able to make an objective decision. But I'm not going to say that I know everything. But I have a value to give, and I feel the experience that I have to be able to share, to listen, to be objective, and make decisions. I'm not going to be a person, as you mentioned this past Monday, to be a rubber stamp. I'm not a rubber stamp. I don't have no special interest in this project. No special interest. I'm not in anybody's pocket. The only interest I have is for the people of Hawaii to have representation, to be transparent. That's all.
Mr. Okabe, you mentioned about the immensity of this project, the importance of this project, and it's a very complex project. And for a number of reasons, we've kind of been delayed for 3 years to get this project moving. And I've been publicly out there saying that we cannot allow this project to be Rail 2.0, where it just kind of lingers and it balloons and the cost just continues to escalate. And it's with that mindset that it's really, in my opinion, imperative that the Senate stacks the Stadium Authority Board with people who really understand the complexities of finance, land development. I appreciate your interest in learning and being fair, and you're a good-hearted man, well-intentioned man, but we need the stadium to really, right out of the chute, get going. And I don't get the sense that your background will help add to the discussion there. It'll actually be more questioning, what about this? How about this? When we really need to have people who understand finance, land management, construction, things that have to do with this particular project. You have a fantastic background in education, and we all benefited from your leadership in that area. But like for example, we're trying to utilize HCDA's entitlement powers to move the project along more quickly. What do you feel are HCDA's powers and abilities that can help move this project forward? How do you see HCDA fitting in with?
Well, I think it has to do with dialogue. It has to do with trying to negotiate things, trying to get a better understanding of what's happening within this particular project. We're going to have to look at procurement with DAGs to be able to give us that explanation. For me to come in as a new board member on this particular committee, I'm not going to be able to, because there have been a lot of work done with the board members in itself, right? They already have a plan. They looked at your plan. They looked at what you envision this particular complex to be. But I feel that I'm going to be an addition to this particular project, not a detriment to this project. That is not what I want to do. All of us here today, all of you as legislators came from different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds. Vice Chair being appointed your background as a reporter and becoming senator, right? Senator Favela, a custodian who became a senator. The requirements of being a leader in this community are vast, having a wide range of diversity. That is what I'm talking about. I cannot tell you specific details of certain aspects of the Stadium Authority because I'm not on there. But we have the professionals in DAGs, we have attorneys, we have management people on there, we have engineers on that particular board to be able to share those information. But what I'm hearing from you that I'm going to be a detriment to this particular project. But no, I believe that I'm going to be enhancing this particular project to have a perspective of diversity, to have a perspective of understanding, to be a comprehensive thinker. But, you know, and we talked about that, you know, last week, that you only wanted a specific group of people to be on this committee. And I do not agree with that, see? And if respectfully, I don't agree with that. I believe that we need to be more transparent and to have a diverse group, like the legislature, right? You have a diverse group. We have a Republican senator right here, right? His background and your background all different, but he is able to become passionate in what he does, to speak on behalf of the community. And his voice is heard very loud and clear, even on the neighbor islands. They know who Senator Favela is. Not because he's the only Republican, but because he comes from diversity. He gives people hope. He gives people an opportunity to think that anything can happen, a career. And that's what we need, diversity. So I understand your position, Senator. You told me that already last week, but you're not going to recommend me. You gave me those two options. I chose to do this. And that's the reason why I tried to explain to the senators or the viewing audience of my position. You have your own personal feeling, and all of us do. But all of us should be considered of doing the right thing for the right reasons for the people of Hawaii. This is a stadium authority that involves the state of Hawaii. Not only Oahu, but for the state of Hawaii.
You know, to your point about the legislative body representing all facets of life and various backgrounds, I agree with you there. But I can probably attest to you that when you get elected into office, it takes a little while, perhaps years, for you to understand the process, how all the departments work together, and how they effectuate whatever the changes in their government services there. And if we had the time to kind of cultivate people to understand the importance of the stadium, the land use issues of the stadium, I would agree. But as I mentioned, we're 3 years delayed into this project, and we need people to contribute to shaping the future of the stadium from day one. And that's what I think we need on the stadium board. You're coming in with that you're fair, and you want to look at all sides, and you're going to learn on the job. The public deserves something that is going to help move the process along quicker. And I just don't see that your background really is contributing to us better managing, better financing this particular stadium. Like, so for example, in the budget so far, we're hoping that we get $350 million in the budget to get the stadium out the gate. We fully expect that we're going to probably have a $450 million stadium built. That other $400,000, or excuse me, $100 million will be paid for by the private sector. And so there's discussion now on how we're going to make up that $100 million. Should we use availability payments, or should we have the developer have a higher share of revenues for the stadium? What are your views on that? I mean, which is the better approach in which to finance the stadium for the next 10, 12 years?
Well, I saw that. I researched this, and you are correct. $20 million from the general fund, $180 million in revenue bonds, $150 million in general obligation bonds. But also you're looking at a $1.65 billion private sector working with the state to be able to fund this particular project, right? That was what I read. That's basically I saw on the website.
That's phase one and phase two.
Phase one and
In
phase two.
particular for the phase one stadium, we're expecting to build a $450 million stadium with only $350 million in taxpayer funds.
Mhm.
So the $100 million in excess that we expect the private sector to put in, should we finance that to availability payments, or should we do that on higher revenue share for the developer in the out years?
Well, I think that the board will have to make the determination. The board has to look at all avenues to be able to look at basically the whole project in regards to how we're going to fund this. We cannot ask the state legislature for all that money for another 100 million. Or we might, right? But is it a possibility that are we going to start to build everything at once? Or are we going to build the stadium first? I know the project has all these other facets around that area, right? The University of Hawaii has an agreement to play at the university for about 3 years. You want this project, as I read, within the next 2 to 3 years to be completed. That's what I read, right? So therefore, we have to try to meet that deadline. And how are we going to do that? We're going to have to hold the contractors and the construction people and to be accountable. Let's look at the rail. Look at our rail. Is it on schedule? There has been so many delays, and we want to be able to do fiscally responsible, but we need to do it right, right? We need to do it right. It's coming from his area to the stadium, and now maybe not even to Ala Moana or not to Waikiki. There's always, even in the county of Hawaii, we have roads, we have projects, the Daniel K. Inouye Highway. There are a lot of projects that does not end on time. There's always things that you have to do in order to speed these things along. But transparency, giving the legislature, giving the public an opportunity to have the transparency necessary so that they know exactly what we're doing. Bills are made all the time. The legislature can also give an opportunity to fund more. The private sector, right? So that's the information that I would like to be able to listen to.
Okay, so
And I understand what you're saying. I mean, you know, like I said, I cannot speak on that because in some respects, because I'm not on the board. I only know what I read or what is being transparent. But even when I read, it's not as transparent as people think, because there's only certain information I could find on this particular project, and that concerns you. And you're very passionate because, as I understand, vice chairs and your district butts against each other, right? So you have a personal interest because that is your district. Yes, it is in your district, but it is also a state facility that involves all the other districts as well, even the neighbor islands. That's all I'm trying to do, Senator. I'm a volunteer. I'm not getting paid for this job, but I'm trying to express to you and the senators who are watching, who will watch this, or the community, to know that not one specific group should have complete control over anything. Not one specific group.
I don't think any specific group has control over this particular
Well,
project.
when you said that you only want a certain group to be able to move this thing forward, that tells me that it's a special group.
It's not a special group. It's people with certain business or planning
That
acumen.
that is what you're saying. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
So.
So I'm only doing addition. I'm not, Senator, I'm not going to be disrespectful to you, but I'm just giving you my point of view. That's all.
Okay. Fair enough. Senator Rivera.
Aloha. So in your time as managing director or HSTA or any other capacity, could you share with us maybe a situation where there's a project, timelines being what they were, or something, kind of the wheels falling off the cart, or a crisis within the the team that's managing something. Can you share with us an example of something that has happened in your past and how you helped get the project back on track or resolve the conflicts of the people you're working with?
Right now, as we speak, we have about a mile in Kyokaha that the road is not being completed because of delays in contracts and things like this. So now I think I read in, and since I left, it's still not done. So therefore now the state is taking charge of that 1 mile piece of property that is a county property, right? So we had opportunities when I was there for a line, water line that goes in from the bayfront area to Kyokaha to the wharf, right? A line that had to deal with a fire code violation. You have to have a certain amount of type of pipe in order to have access to the wharf in case there's a fire. In the Hilo area, we have a big water tank that is outdated. So it was the opportunity for the director of that area to contact the county to be able to have the fire department, to be able to have the planning, to be able to look at this particular line, a partnership between the county and the state to be able to move that line into that area. But we have many roads, we have bridges, state bridges that are not in good shape. So therefore, it is the county's responsibility because county and state, right, has to work together to be able to move the project forward for safety. A lot of times they divert the traffic into another area that is safe, but it's much smaller than bridges. We have the Big Island is so big that you can put all the islands and more on the Big Island. We have so many roads. So, there are challenges.
So what was what was the challenge there, and what did you bring to help resolve that challenge?
Well, you need to come back and talk to the contractors. You would have to have negotiate with the planning department and the Department of Public Works to try to resolve a situation, to try to speed it through. But this particular case is that I left and it's still going on. But things like that will happen all the time, no matter what construction, whether it's in Kauai or Maui or in Waianae and Farrington Highway, you're always going to have that problem.
It's true, but we're looking, we would ideally like to nip those in the bud
Yeah,
as much as possible.
yes.
So they don't go too far.
Yes, because I think your question on Monday was that how are you going to do that? It's through negotiations of how we're going to work with the contractors to be able to have some incentives so they can finish the job quicker, But there's so many regulations. It could be, we had a problem with the park and recreation at the golf course. It was the lines of the handicap lines or making it accessible for, the handicap. And it had to be level. All of those things are going to come into play. You think as you look at it, it's a great parking lot. But as you go in and start to get the level out and try to address it, then there's a lot of problems, right? And you have to do things right. That's all I'm saying. We got to do things right.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Are there questions, Senator Mizumicho?
Aloha, Mr.
Aloha.
Kobe. So I so appreciate you sharing your work history, and when I'm listening to you, I have, thoughts about the plantation style of living that we used to have, the agriculture, and I do. Sometimes I wish, we were still in in the timeline.
No, I don't want that.
And I so appreciate you sharing about, your background in education, and very impressive, the and I can see the passion, and I want to echo the sentiments of the chair about how, in my conversation with you, I can feel that you're a good man and that you're armed with good intentions. So you inferred earlier, I think, throughout your narrative that um, you see yourself as more like a community member, right? Because you may not have the necessary like background in land management or finance, but you see us as a diverse voice. You keep going back to diversity and transparency. Those are the themes, right, that you had kind of alluded to. Actually, a couple of years ago, the legislature provided for an expansion of the board of directors, so to provide for community members. So we had a privilege of confirming those two community members, one from Mauna Loa and the other one from Maiea. The one from Maiea actually is somebody I'm very, familiar with. Her name is Claire Tomamoto, has been really steeped in community work in our area for a long time, as the president of the Aiea Community Association. So considering, in fact, Claire has been there and involved in the Aiea community or the stadium project in many ways, being familiar with it for the last, 10 years since we started to, put this project together. And I guess since you live on the Big Island and may have a good perspective, but considering that, the two community seats are really now being taken by the Mauna Loa representative and the Aiea representative, how would you, what kind of diverse voice do you think you can lend to the project, considering that the two community members are already there to provide that?
I don't know those community members. I only know one person on the board. I did dealings with him when I was the HSC president, is John Fink.
Yes.
I know him. We did a project together for a contest for students and it was on TV when I left. But I don't know them, so I cannot comment on that perspective. I believe there's 9 members on the board. 2 of them is the president of the University of Hawaii, and I think a board member, right, to make it 11.
It's a non-voting board member.
Yeah, non-voting board
DOE
member.
And
Yeah,
UH.
so I read that. And I think that, having a different voice, as I didn't know there was only one, there were already 2 community leaders. I with my understanding that I thought had only one. But nevertheless, I don't see myself being a detriment to this committee. I don't see myself being a person that is going to hinder the progress of this. I feel that my input and my diverse background in the many jobs that I've had in this community, and my desire to serve as a volunteer, as a senior, which I have a lot of time to do. I think that I'm a fast learner. Trust me, don't think that being a managing director was because of my education basis to be a managing director. We had, as you all know, we had a situation, as I mentioned to you, about the lava. devastated homes and people lost their homes, and having a flood. Our mayor had a 6th heart attack, 3 when I was the managing director. So I had to lead and be able to, like you say, you don't have time to learn, but it puts you in adverse condition to be able to react and to lead. Like all of you as leaders, you are challenged to do a job and do the right thing. And that's all I'm doing. So I understand your reservations. You know, I know that the chair, like I said, we had the discussion. I chose to go through this process, and whatever the senators decide to do, I have to accept that. But it is not to save me from embarrassment. Running for office or to be a leader in the state of Hawaii, because of the values that you have, to do the right thing for people and have a voice for the community. That's the reason why you run for office. But if you run for office thinking that, oh, wow, I might lose this election, I'm going to be embarrassed. That is not the right reason. But people, the community that we live in, can see right through that. They can see the value, your integrity of your actions or inactions. We live in a very, very dark time. We live in a dark time, and we have many challenges before us. Think about it. The war in Ukraine, right? We have a situation where we had just the other day a person shooting people in the subway. Just yesterday in Hawaii, this guy put a man on fire, a senior citizen on fire downtown. We live in a dark time, but we need to look at the opportunity that as leaders to be able to lead. But I am very fortunate and happy that I was able to see a Black person to be elected as president, the first woman of Asian Black ancestry to be the Vice President of the United States, and also to have just recently a judge on the Supreme Court who is Black. For that, I am very grateful. We have to move forward, senators, and whatever your reasons are, I accept that. And the 25 other senators would have to review that as well. And I respect that. I'm only trying to give back to the community, which I feel very passionately and strongly I'm able to contribute. That's all.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Okada, no one on this committee feels that you're going to be a detriment to the commission or to the board. I do think, though, that many of us think that we are looking for an individual who's going to be additive to the board, and that's where there's a difference of opinion as to how much you can add to the discussion and the expeditious outlining or putting out of the RFP, as well as the entire development process and holding the contractor accountable to be deliverable, hopefully of a stadium in 2025. We're in a very short timeline to get this done. Having said that, any members, any final questions?
Yeah,
Senator Favela?
with your diverse background, I wasn't here all the way from the beginning, I apologize. I was in another committee. With your diverse background from being police chief, or even being in the police force, and being managing director, with all the experience that you came from, the diverse background that you have, at times when, how you're just talking now, you're getting chosen by the governor to come into a position that you're not knowing. Every single position here, including being a police officer, when you first went to be a police officer?
No, I wasn't a police officer. I was the chair of the police
Oh,
commission.
police of the chief police.
The commission,
So being
yeah,
a chair of the police commission,
yes.
being part of that process, did you have any experience prior to that that would have made you be able to do your duties as a chief?
The chair. The chair
Yeah,
of the
the
police-
chair.
Yeah, the chair of the police commission or the fire commission that I was a chair. In any commission or board, it is an advocacy of people or community members to sit on this board. They hire the police chief. On the fire commission, you hire the fire chief. Members of that particular commission are not necessarily policemen or firemen. There are advocates of each community appointed by the mayor to be able to sit on that particular committee. So, you know, it's like when I served at the East Hawaii Coalition for the Homeless, that was one of my first board and commissions that I sent. I wanted to be on that because I wanted to have a better understanding of homelessness. But I didn't have to be homeless to be able to sit on that board. Every single commission that I sat on, there was a financial budget. And I was able to use that diversity of my experiences in that to be able to make a decision. To become the chair of a police commission or a fire commission, that to me sent a very strong message to me that I was able to listen, to be able to make objective decisions. I was involved in 3 selections of police chief. Here in Honolulu, you have the police commission has decided to, number 1, go out to an outside agency to help with the process. On the Big Island, we did not do that. When I was the chair of the police commission looking for a chief, we had public hearings on Hilo and Kona to address the public's concern. We had a police major, I believe, the Major Prasser was also applying to be chief on the Big Island. We was able to have the opportunity to have dialogue with the community, because that was important for the police commission to be able to make a selection of the next police chief. Objectively, with HR, with the attorneys that we had, to look at the qualifications of the individual to lead us to be the police chief. And we did the same thing for the fire chief. So when you look at diverse groups, it's a coordination of people getting together to hear and dialogue to make objective decisions. And that is what I bring to the Stadium Authority. And, you know, I understand.
Well, the only reason I bring this up is because we understand, and we know the passion of our chair of this Stadium Authority.
Mhm.
We never see eye to eye with a lot of stuff with the Stadium Authority, but I tend to agree now that certain things have to be done. But for me, I don't feel the same way in a sense of I have to know everything. You know, I was blessed to be one of the few individuals that came into this building, besides probably Representative Singh, that came from, I guess, a different background. But the willing to serve, which I hear in your voice that you have, that's enough for me, knowing that you would not let down the state and the Stadium Authority. And I understand he knows way more than me because he's been on this project way more than me, and I understand that. But I feel that with serving, and being managing director, and then rising to the occasions when the mayor was sick, like you said, and being to run the position, I will tell you this. You know, when I got here, I knew nothing. I never know. I had to ask the governor for the money after the money is approved. There's a lot of things. But my colleagues, people that he right now, they're choosing as Stadium Authority, can wrap that and malama you if you don't have that. Same like they did with me here. If they didn't do that with me here, I wouldn't know as what I know. I had great people like Senator Kim, Senator Gadani, Senator De La Cruz, and even Senator Wakai. Is willing to tell me things that I didn't know to be observing. So that's the reason why I guess I have a different look on the selection of the governor's message, which is you, because I think we need people that's gonna have passion, and the passion can overrun sometimes the experience because you're willing to learn. So that's just my thing is keep your passion and keep your head up high, and don't feel that everything is against you, because it's not.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you for coming and being stepping up to the occasion.
Thank you.
Further questions? No? If not, we're going to take a brief recess prior to taking a vote. Thank you for your patience. We're reconvening our Committee on Energy, Economic Development and Tourism for our GM 824 and 825. This is for Will Okabe, who is nominated to be a board member on the Stadium Authority. It's the recommendation of the chair to not advise and consent on Mr. Okabe. I appreciate all of his past contributions to the community. He's a good-hearted man. He's a well-intentioned man. He certainly has passion, but for the Stadium Authority, with its most pivotal years ahead, we need more than passion. We need business acumen. We need understanding of land management, finance, construction. And I just don't see that Mr. Okabe has any of these qualities and will be additive to the Stadium Authority Board. So that is going to be the recommendation, is to not advise and consent on Mr. Okabe. Members, any discussion? Senator Favela?
Yeah, Chair, I am one not for giving people chances and opportunities, but you have more experience in working on the Stadium Authority, so I respect you as being a senator from the district. And usually I would not agree, but after we huddled up here, and I know no means yes and yes means no, and I'm gonna go with the chair on his recommendation in downing this person, only because we need what you exactly said we need. And it's not that I'm not believing in an unsung hero or a person that comes from a custodian to a senator, but this is a very delicate, big money project, and we cannot go forward and be another rail. And I totally agree with you guys on that. But so I'll be voting with you guys for the measure.
Any further discussions?
Thank you for the opportunity to have the discussion today. Right? Seeing as this project is squarely in the districts of both you and the vice chair, I gladly defer to the recommendation from your community and your recommendation.
Thank you. Members, any further discussion? If not, Senator Misalucha, I vote yes for the recommendation to not advise and consent on GM 824 as well as 825.
Thank you, Chair. Members, we are voting on GM 825 and GM 824. The chair's recommendation is not to advise and consent. So just note that an I vote is to follow the recommendation of the chair. So chair votes aye, Vice Chair Misalucha votes aye, Senator Lee.
Aye.
Senator Riviere,
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Chair, with 5 votes, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members.